Shortly after 9.1 released, we put out this video. It was an investigation into how well Shadowlands 9.0 had done, based on the publicly available numbers. It was a pretty damn enlightening video, to say the least. Well, today we are going to cap off patch 9.1, work out how well it has done, and give ourselves a baseline against which we can measure the performance of 9.1.5 once it's been out for a few months. Why? Well, so we can learn, understand, and hey, hopefully for 9.2 and 10.0, track WoW's comeback, because that is what we all want to get, along with Boxu, the place to get a slice of Japan each month, and of course, 10% off up to $47. Their boxes give you a super fun journey through Japanese snacking, as in these literally are Japanese snacks they ship from Japan, and they even partner with snack makers for some really cool, unique treats. It is the perfect gift, and you may even win tickets to Japan, because Boxu are giving away 5 sets, and you're eligible if you're subscribed before the end of December, so good luck with that. Now then, it is Hokkaido holidays in this month's box. Now we got some awesome things. Mochi puffs. These are crazy. They're like lighter than air. They're mad. I've never tasted anything like them. They're so cool. Also, the interesting popcorn quest continues because these are soy butter and they are really, really good. We've also got some wasabi crackers. I pretty much love wasabi. I can't get enough of it. Also, a thing I've never tried before, a corn tea. It was delicious. I was really surprised by that. And, you know, of course, everything else. Now, to get yours, and of course the 10% off link up to $47, hit up our link down below, and hey, you might even get some tickets to Japan. Box is a bunch of fun, makes for a fantastic gift, and the link is down below. Thanks to them, and let's go. First then, let's see how the Sanctum of Domination raid has fared. Okay, well, here is a graph of normal mode first boss versus last boss guild kills in the first 3 months. This is a metric that helps us understand how many guilds are hopping into the raid and how many are actually finishing the raid. Now, this number was a little staggering, to be honest. For Castle Nathria, there are 44,312 guild kills of the first boss, and 35,184 for the final boss. Yeah, people stuck with it. With Sanctum, there is 20,080 guilds who have killed boss 1, and 16,201 that have killed the final boss, Sylvanas. So a pretty decent percentage stuck around to the finish, but overall, there is a difference of around 54.7 in the first and last boss kills between the 2 tiers, which is kind of unreal. The normal mode players have somewhat evaporated. What about BFA then? Well, this is where it's interesting because BFA had a weaker start with Uldir. 38,319 for boss 1, 27,223 for boss 8. Of course, the context here is that Shadowlands sold extremely well. Fastest selling PC game ever at its point of release. Seemingly did actually outperform Battle for Azeroth, so it had a massive starting point that was super successful. Now, if we move on with BFA, Dazara lore fell down to 22,061 for boss 1 and 16,432 for boss 10, which is actually quite similar to Sanctum of Domination's numbers. But the drop-off between the first 3 months of each tier is larger for Shadowlands. And remember, Shadowlands had a much stronger start with its first tier. So Shadowlands kind of had it all to gain, but ended up losing a bit. BFA guild kills went down by about 41% between Season 1 and Season 2. For Shadowlands, that same number is 55%. Now, normal mode is what many social players do, so it's a vital statistic for the average player base member. These are the people who I think first will wander off to other games. What about heroic mode though? Well, this one's a bit brutal. So, Castle Nathria to Sanctum of Domination, first boss guild kills in the first 3 months of each respective tier had a 52% decrease. For the final boss, that decrease is 48%. I mean, similar enough to normal, and that means ouch. And take a look at this table. you can see the percentage of guilds that got ahead of the curve within the first 3 months of a given tier. Generally, this number should be between 50 and 67%. That's roughly normal if you look at the past expansions. Nathria was 39.9. I would say likely because by the time some guilds were progressing at the end, some of the issues of Shadowlands had become apparent, but also because there are some bosses like Denathrius and Stone Legion Generals that were a bit harder towards the end, as compared to Sanctum of Domination, which is an easier raid. And as for Sanctum, its number is 43.15%. Now, these two Shadowlands ones are basically all-time lows when compared to past content, where the previous lowest was Tomb of Sargeras. Now, despite this percentage figure increasing in Sanctum of Domination from Castle Nathria, we can see that in more absolute terms, the actual number of guilds participating in heroic raiding has actually fallen by 51.7-ish%. That's over half. Compared to BFA, itself a rather dramatic expansion, and we get Season 1 to Season 2 first and last boss kill decreases of 38 and 36%, which is quite a bit different to Shadowlands, which is a bit more in the 50% range. As for Mythic then, well, this is actually interesting because we see a decrease in first boss kills, which you would expect from launch to a follow-up tier, but we actually see an increase in last boss kills. Now, while not trying to downplay the obvious increase in the number of Mythic guilds that have successfully defeated the final boss of the raid this tier so far, there are a few things we should mention. This tier has been noticeably easier to progress through compared to Season 1. This is due to both raid bosses generally being easier across the board, bar one or two outliers that have since been nerfed, and, well, bigger power creep seen this time around because, of course, of the Shard of Domination system. Our resident cutting-edge raider, Dakor, certainly felt this as well, and it is actually reflected in the statistics. So here's a brilliant table. You can actually see that every boss in Sanctum of Domination, until the last three, saw a negative difference between the tiers. That's mostly because the last three bosses of Sanctum of Domination are significantly easier than the last three of Castle Nathria. Take only the first 7 bosses, and you have a 27% average decrease versus Castle Nathria, which is hardly surprising. This actually further reinforces something we've been saying and thinking for a little bit now. The changes that frustrate and throttle, that hold back those high-end, cutting-edge players, those are changes that those players will just power through. You know? It's like, oh, Covenant swapping? Screw you! I'll make 4 Warlocks. That kind of stuff, or 4 characters, whatever, you know what I mean. I think when confronted with the same friction, heroic and normal raiders are maybe a bit more likely to just swap games. I mean, in a way you could say that maybe their guilds are a bit less game goal oriented versus a mythic raiding guild, so I suppose it's no wonder. I mean, that certainly has happened in our guild where, yeah, we wandered off during heroic progression to do other things. Finally, I've got 2 large graphs of this first versus last boss kill data from Nighthold through to now. And for normal mode, you can see that humongous surge of Shadowlands launch, and then how quickly it fell off. Yeah, Shadowlands attracted a lot of people, but it lost a higher percentage of them. Heroic follows a similar trend. Last boss kills are at an all-time low for this first 3 months metric that we're using. Now, an anecdote, my guild cleared normal at a pretty average pace, so we blasted through it, and then we struggled with attendance issues during our heroic progression. We reached Fate Scribe, and then our comp just kind of fell apart, really. This was at the time of peak World of Warcraft discontent, and also the Blizzard lawsuit news, where I can definitely say a lot of our raiders, and really us included, we just kind of felt like, you know, not really super hyped to play the game with all of that going on. So I have to wonder if these heroic numbers better reflect player drop-off, because normal would be pretty easily cleared within the, you know, direct big hype cycle of a fresh patch, and before the lawsuit, versus heroic for your average guild. As for Mythic then, it's what you'd expect. There's not too much else to add that we've not said. So overall then, rating data shows us a higher than normal drop-off during patch 9.1. Heroic last boss kills are at the lowest they have ever been since Nighthold, like for like. Normal is not. And that does make me wonder if the timing of FF14's rise and Blizzard's lawsuit have impacted heroic raid clear rates more than normal. Okay, let's talk about dungeons then. Mythic Plus stats are honestly brilliant. We've got access to the total number of M Plus runs done each week from BFA Season 4 to Shadowlands Season 2. Shadowlands started off slow for Mythic Plus, and while 9.0.5 helped a bit, it was in March. That's outside our dataset. BFA Season 4 started stronger and then dwindled over time. But remember, that is comparing the final tier of an expansion versus the start of a new expansion. You would expect a final tier to be lower. Honestly, I'm surprised Shadowlands Season 1 is not higher from its outset. I suppose the only extra factor for BFA Season 4 is people running more dungeons to try to farm corruption gear. Now, Shadowlands Season 2 is of course where we get to the modern day, and it's where things are more interesting. Because Shadowlands Season 2, earlier on in the expansion, actually started below Battle for Azeroth Season 4, but above Shadowlands Season 1, which of course had a slow start. But by week 5 and week 6 of the season, the story is completely different. Season 1 of this expansion is between 800k and 1 million per week, while Season 2 is down around 530k. From that point onward, Season 2 just dwindles. Taking the end of our sample, week 16, we see BFA Season 4 at 507k, Shadowlands Season 1 at 789k, and Shadowlands Season 2 at 257k, which is shockingly low compared to Season 1, 16 weeks in. This is where the start versus end of season percentages come in. BFA Season 4 had a 45.9% drop in 16 weeks. Of course, owing to the very, very low start, Shadowlands Season 1 had a 45.1% increase, but Shadowlands Season 2 had a 64.3% decrease. And that honestly surprised me in its magnitude. Season 1 didn't have dungeon teleports, it didn't have the scoring system, it didn't start with Valor points. Season 1 only really started tapering off big after like week 17. Shadowlands Season 2 then had more rewards, yet it dropped off far faster, which I suppose is concerning. But let's talk about PvP. For PvP, it's nice and quick. We have total rated games tracked by type in EU and NA. We'll focus on 3v3, but as you can see in this graph, the trends are similar between like the different regions and stuff, so I'll just use these numbers. The week of August 9th, we had an average of 29,496 games played per day. Fast forward to the week of October 25th, and that number is 15,171. That's a 48.56% decrease in that region. And that is pretty brutal. Monthly active users then. So the third quarter earnings call came with the news that Diablo 2 Resurrected revenue was really great, but it was partially offset by lower World of Warcraft revenue. And that Blizzard has 26 million monthly active users, which is in fact stable from the last quarter. And being real with you, that's bloody bad news. You gotta remember, yeah, Q2 was the 9.1 launch quarter, but 9.1 launched at the very end of June. So anyone who resubbed for it would have been logging in Q3 as well. So those numbers will carry over. Blizzard's Hearthstone promotion then kicked off in September, and remember, you don't count as an MAU just for having a BNet account and using it. You count as one monthly active user for every game that you play at least once per month. So if you log into Hearthstone and then you log into World of Warcraft, you will count as 2 MAUs. So, with heavy promotions, the launch of Diablo 2 Resurrected, which by the way is Activision Blizzard's best performing remaster ever, topping Spyro, Crash and Tony Hawk, even with all of that, their MAUs were flat. Combine that with WoW revenue not being great, and I think it does show a general decrease in Blizzard's portfolio that has been offset by D2R selling so well, their servers pretty much exploded. Q4 then will continue to benefit from the Hearthstone crossover, which pretty much had a new thing to log in for monthly, and it will also benefit, of course, from Season of Mastery, patch 9.1.5, a bit probably, and likely the release of like a new TBC phase or something. Mythic Plus had a 64.3% drop in its first 16 weeks. Normal and heroic raids were around half. The span of PvP that we covered is just shy of half as well. These are rough numbers, no doubt. Look, that's just how it is. They do show that 9.1 has not done a great job of keeping players around. I mean, it's no doubt, of course, spurred on partially by the Blizzard lawsuit, and perhaps people knowing that patch 9.1.5 is going to make the game, well, I mean, has made the game a lot better, a lot more playable. And I think a lot of people have maybe decided to skip 9.1 until the fixes in 9.1.5 come out. Because 9.1.5 even uncaps Valor points in Conquest. It opens up the Covenants. The game is far more ult-friendly. And that's why, in a few months' time, I cannot wait to revisit all of these numbers to see what 9.1.5 actually did. Will it stem the tide? Will it increase playability? Will more Mythic Keystones be done? Will more Mythic Keystone dungeons be tracked during the Time Walking week? And will we be able to work out how much engagement the Legion Time Walking feature has driven? A lot of fascinating stuff. And look, I know that these numbers do not paint a pretty picture. And because of that, this is bound to some to come off as a very negative video. But look, I kind of like the idea of doing this. It's like a little health checkup for World of Warcraft we could run every quarter or every patch. And that means that, you know, if things get better over time, and I dearly hope they will, and we're still making these videos, well, in the future, I want these videos to be able to say, hey, everyone, the numbers have all went up, people seem to be more happy, and there's more World of Warcraft being played. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if 9.2 does have a decent little, bump there, and certainly if 10.0 is going to be a bit more Azeroth-focused, as they very much suggested in interviews lately, then perhaps we will see a big bump in the numbers for 10.0, and I think that would make us all quite happy. You know, numbers go up, people stay, game's good, all's happy. That is the future we want. So, well, whatever happens, we'll be here to track it. Okay. That's it for today's video. Thank you very much for watching. Thanks to Dashlane for sponsoring. Check him out in the link down below. With that, I'll see you next time.